I only looked away for 1 minute. Just one. I bent down to tie my shoe, and when I looked back, Emma, my daughter, wasn't on the swing anymore. The chains were still swaying, just a little, like she jumped off and run ahead, like kids do. That's what I told myself, at first. That's what I needed to believe. Because anything else? No, not Emma. She was 5 years old, wore light-up sneakers, loved lemon yogurt, said please even to the dog. I brought her to the park like always. Same bench, same juice box, same routine. Nothing strange. Until she was gone. We called her name. Other parents helped. I ran in circles around that park, checked the sandbox, behind the slide, near the bushes. Every second felt like I was dragging my feet through concrete. Every second felt like I was dying. And she didn't answer, not once. The police came fast, taped off the area, wrote things down. But no one could explain why no one saw her leave, or why her backpack was still zipped up exactly where she left it, or why her tiny handprint was still on the rail of the slide, but no footprints beyond it. 48 hours later, I went back to that park, alone. I didn't know what I was looking for, until I saw the door to the restroom move. And what I found inside the last stall changed everything. To continue, please take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I'm doing here. Tell me where you're watching from and what time it is. I read every one. Now turn off the lights, maybe turn on a fan for soft noise, and let's begin. I only looked away for 1 minute. That's the part I keep replaying over and over. Like if I say it enough, maybe the world will understand that I didn't lose her. She was taken in the space between a blink and a breath. We were at Hollow Creek Park, the small one near the edge of town, tucked behind the gas station and the post office. The kind of place where the playground's a little rusted and the trees lean just enough to make the shadows feel soft. Emma loved it there. Said the swings sounded like singing chains. She was 5. Her imagination had room for everything. That day was warm, early autumn. I remember because she wore the yellow jacket with the little sunflower patch on the back. She asked if she could wear her sparkly sneakers, and I said yes, because why not? We got there around 4 p.m. She ran to the swing while I sat on the bench, the one by the water fountain. There were a few other kids, some parents, a man with a stroller, a teenager on a bike. Everything felt normal. I pulled out my phone to check a work email, just one message. It took maybe 20-30 seconds. When I looked up, she was gone. At first, I thought she'd gone to the slide or the monkey bars. I stood up, scanning left and right. I called her name, casual at first. Emma! Nothing. I walked toward the swing. The seat was still moving, just a little. Not wildly, just enough that it hadn't stopped yet. That's when I felt it. That cold crawl up the back of your neck. That sensation your body gives you before your mind catches up. My mouth went dry. My feet started moving before I could tell them where to go. Emma! Louder this time. I jogged to the sandbox. Nothing. Checked behind the tree near the fence. Nothing. Looked toward the restrooms. Both doors closed. That's when I started running, calling her name louder. Parents turned. One mom grabbed her toddler. A man dropped his coffee. And I just kept yelling. Emma! No answer. No sound. Not even footsteps. Just wind in the trees. Just a swing swaying, like someone had jumped without landing. The park froze around me. I don't mean people literally stopped moving, but something in the air thickened. Parents glanced at each other, that kind of shared unease where no one wants to panic, but everyone feels it under their skin. I think the mother closest to me understood first. She stood, scanned the playground, and called to her son with a tension I hadn't heard moments earlier. I shouted again, "Emma!" Then louder, "Emma!" The second time, it hit differently. People started reacting. A father near the water fountain looked up from his phone. Two teens paused their skateboard tricks. One older man on the bench, he just stared, then slowly stood and took a few steps toward the trees, like he was trying to be helpful but wasn't sure how. A woman came up beside me. I think her name was Rochelle. I've seen her at the grocery store a few times. Her daughter plays at the same daycare. "What's going on?" I couldn't speak right away. I pointed to the swing. She was just there. How long ago? I checked my watch. I still don't know why. I wasn't timing it. But instinct makes you look for something concrete when everything's falling apart. Maybe a minute? She blinked. Her eyes flicked to the swing, to the sandbox, to the path that curves around the restroom building. Did she go to the bathroom? I didn't know. God, I didn't know. So I ran. I slammed into the women's restroom door. Empty stalls, nothing but the stinging smell of old bleach. I checked the men's room too. Same. My voice echoed off the tiled walls like I was shouting into a cave. "Emma!" Nothing. I ran back out and someone had already called 911. That's when the world shifted. The sirens came quicker than I expected. Police cars, park rangers, a single fire truck, though I'm not sure who called that in. They asked for a recent photo. I handed over my phone. They asked what she was wearing. I said the yellow jacket, the sunflower one. They asked when I last saw her. I said less than 10 minutes ago, maybe 5. That's when their faces changed. See, 10 minutes is enough. 10 minutes is exactly enough. They started marking off the perimeter, taping trees with yellow plastic, like the wind couldn't move through it. One of the officers kept asking questions, if I'd been drinking, if I had custody, if Emma had ever wandered before. Does she have a history of running off? I said no, because no, she didn't. Is there any tension between you and her mother? Are you currently living together? I don't even remember what I said. I remember my hands. They were shaking, but not from fear, from rage. They weren't looking yet. They were screening me first. The park emptied out slowly. Other parents left with their children gripped tight by the wrist or underarm. Some nodded to me with pity. Some didn't meet my eyes. And I just stood there, by the swing, listening to it creak, listening to my own breath. The sun dipped lower, and the shadows stretched long. The wind shifted, and I realized I didn't remember the last thing I'd said to her. I couldn't even recall if I'd said I love you that morning, only that she'd asked if she could have strawberry milk after the park. I said maybe, and then I said nothing. And then she was gone. That night, I didn't go home. The officers told me they'd keep me updated. They said it like a script, calm, practiced, hollow. They took my number, wrote it down twice, but never looked me in the eye when they said, "We'll do everything we can." I stayed at the park. I walked the perimeter again, flashlight in hand, scanning every bush, every low branch, every patch of grass where a little girl could sit or hide, or worse. I yelled her name until my throat gave out, and then I whispered it, over and over. "Emma, Emma, please." By midnight, I was the only one there. The wind picked up, brushing leaves against the concrete in soft, scraping waves. The playground didn't make any sound anymore. The swings had stopped. The slide gleamed under the street lamp like a blade. The whole place looked wrong, like a painting you've stared at too long, and suddenly the faces shift. I sat on the bench where I last saw her. Just sat. Time didn't move. Not really. I checked my phone too many times, but the numbers didn't make sense. 1:14 a.m., 2:07, 3:03. None of it mattered. Nothing happened. Except one thing. At some point, maybe after 3:30, I heard something. Faint. Almost nothing. Like a hum, a breath, a flicker of sound from the direction of the restrooms. I stood fast, walked toward it, quiet, careful, like if I moved too loudly, I'd scare away whatever was waiting. I reached the door, put my hand on the metal. It was cold, too cold for the weather. I opened it slowly. The lights inside flickered once. Empty. I checked every stall. Still empty. But the smell was different now. Faintly sweet, familiar in a way I couldn't name. Like her shampoo. I stepped into the far stall, the one against the corner wall. Nothing. But when I turned to leave, I saw it, just beneath the baseboard. A smear of yellow fabric, thin, pressed flat, like it had been pulled through from the other side. I dropped to the floor, pushed my fingers under the seam, tugged. It was a torn piece of her jacket, the sunflower patch still attached, still bright, still hers. That's when I knew. She hadn't wandered. She hadn't gotten lost. She'd been taken. And someone had just left me a trail. I ran out of that restroom like it was on fire. The piece of her jacket clutched in my fist, the sunflower patch digging into my palm like it was trying to root itself there. I don't remember screaming, but I must have, because a nearby patrol car lit up like a flare and 2 officers came running toward me. I held it up before they could even speak. "This was inside," I said, "back stall, tucked beneath the wall." They looked at it, blinked, took it from me with gloved hands like it was evidence, which, of course, it was. But the way they handled it felt clinical, like it was an item, not a message. One of them radioed it in. The other asked me to step back. That was when something broke in me. "No, I'm not stepping back. She was here. You missed this." They said it wasn't safe, that they needed to photograph and bag the cloth. I stepped aside, but I didn't move far. I sat outside that restroom and watched them go in. They didn't find anything else. At least, not that night. They said they'd bring in a forensics team in the morning, that we needed daylight, thermal scopes, cadaver dogs. Cadaver. That word. I hadn't heard it until then. I hadn't even let my mind go there. But now it was in the air, stuck like fog in my throat. I didn't sleep. I sat on the bench just outside the bathrooms, flashlight propped on my knee, staring at the door. The night passed slow, hour by hour, as dew settled over the grass and the darkness folded in tighter. Somewhere around 5 a.m., I heard something again. Not a voice, a scrape. Metal against tile. Inside. I stood slowly, walked to the door, didn't open it, just listened. Another scrape. Then silence. Then a click. A faint shift like a latch moving back into place. The door opened by itself. Only a crack. This time, I didn't call for backup. I went in. The lights buzzed faintly overhead. The air was damp, thick, and that scent, Emma's shampoo, sweet and citrusy, lingered. I checked the stalls one by one. Nothing, 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 until the last stall. Again, the one in the corner, the one where I found the fabric. The stall door creaked as I pushed it open, and there, laid neatly on the floor, were her sneakers, the pink ones with the Velcro straps and glitter stars, both facing the wall, placed side by side like someone had set them there. I dropped to my knees, reached for them. Still warm, still recent. And then I looked up. At the tiled wall behind the toilet, a single word had been scratched into the ceramic, barely visible. 3 letters. Dad. I couldn't breathe, couldn't move. I just knelt there, holding my daughter's shoes, staring at the name I hadn't heard in almost 48 hours, carved by fingers I'd kissed goodnight 2 days ago. She was here. She was alive, and she was trying to come back to me. I don't remember leaving the restroom. All I know is I ended up back on the grass outside, holding her shoes in both hands like they might disappear if I let go. The words scratched into the wall, Dad, kept playing in my head over and over. Not like an echo, but like a call I hadn't answered in time. The officers didn't believe me at first. They said the stall had been clear the night before, that no one had seen anything new during the sweep, that maybe I'd moved the shoes, maybe I'd imagined the writing in the wall tile. I told them to check my hands. They were shaking, but they weren't dirty. I hadn't carved anything. I hadn't had to. She had. Emma had. They cordoned off the restroom again, called for another team. Dogs, cameras, specialists. But still, no Emma. Just her shoes. Just her word. Just more silence. I asked to see the security footage. They said there weren't any cameras in the park. Budget cuts, complaints, red tape. I asked if they could check the nearby post office, the corner gas station, any angle, any motion sensor, anything. They said they would. They didn't. So I did. I drove to the gas station at 9 a.m. The manager was a young guy named Chris, didn't know much. Said the camera facing the park entrance wasn't great, but it worked. I asked if we could check the past few nights. He hesitated, said the footage usually auto-overwrites after 48 hours. My heart dropped. But then he said something else. Actually, we got a service outage 2 days ago. Footage stopped, power blinked. It kept the last saved files in local memory. He pulled them up. We watched in silence. Most of it was normal. Cars, kids, leaves blowing, a dog chasing something off camera. But then, 2:13 a.m., last night, movement. From the edge of the frame, a figure appeared. Not big, not obvious. A person in a long coat. Couldn't make out their face. They walked toward the edge of the park, carrying something. No, someone. Small, still. The manager looked at me. You think that's her? I didn't speak, didn't blink, just nodded. At the end of the footage, the figure turned slightly, just enough for the light to catch the back of what they were wearing. A patch, black and gray. I couldn't make it out completely. But I swear, it looked like a cartoon rabbit, the kind you see on a child's backpack. My knees nearly buckled. Emma's backpack had a rabbit patch. It wasn't in the lost and found. It wasn't at home. She never went anywhere without it. And now it was with someone else. That was the moment I stopped waiting, stopped listening, stopped hoping someone else would fix it. Because if she was still leaving messages, then she was still trying to be found. And I was going to follow every breadcrumb, every scent, every shadow, until I brought her home. I didn't go home. What would have been the point? I couldn't sit on the couch with that echo in my chest. I couldn't stare at her drawings on the fridge, or the backpack hook by the door still empty, or that damn yellow cereal bowl waiting like it knew something I didn't. Instead, I went back to the park. Broad daylight now. The police were there, but they didn't stop me. They knew I wasn't going to get in the way. They knew I wasn't going anywhere at all. The restroom was taped off, cameras positioned at the entrance. The team had come and gone, collecting samples, taking swabs, photographing Emma's shoes where I'd left them, right where she had placed them. I stood by the fence that overlooked the tree line. The air was warm, but I felt cold. And then I remembered the smell. Inside that stall, Beneath the bleach and mildew, there had been a scent. Soft, familiar, not just shampoo. Something else. Apples. Emma's shampoo was apple-scented, but there was something else. Crisp, chemical, disinfectant, industrial. I looked toward the far end of the park, past the picnic tables, toward the old maintenance building, half forgotten, locked for years. Or it was supposed to be. But that morning, the padlock was open, hanging loose on the side like someone had forgotten to clasp it. I walked there slowly. No one stopped me. Maybe they didn't see. Maybe I moved like a shadow. I stepped around the side, pushed the door gently. It creaked inward. Dark inside, dust motes in the sunlight, a mop bucket, a few stacked folding chairs, a metal shelf lined with old paper towel rolls and hand soap. And on the far wall, a vent, not large, but large enough for a child to slip through, if they were small, if they were told to. I moved closer. The grate was unscrewed, not removed, set aside, and tucked just behind it, barely visible in the dim, a piece of cloth, purple, frayed at the edge, her sweater, the one with the little heart patch on the sleeve, the one she wore when she was cold or scared or just needed something soft. I pulled it out, hands trembling, and then I saw something else, scratched into the wall just below the vent. A date, 4-19. That was today. She left me a message, not just I'm here, but I'm still here. She scratched the day. She knew I'd come back. She knew I'd see it. I held the sweater close and whispered her name. Emma. No answer, but I didn't expect one, because now I wasn't calling out in the dark. I was following a trail, and my daughter, my brave, brilliant 5-year-old daughter, was leaving breadcrumbs, and I was going to follow every last one. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Something inside me, some animal instinct I didn't know I had, told me to wait, to watch, to listen. Whoever took Emma wasn't just hiding her. They were using the park, the bathroom, that storage shed. The vent wasn't just a coincidence. It was planned. The shoes, the sweater, the date, none of it felt rushed. It felt intentional. Like a message from her, yes, but also like someone was allowing her to leave them, which meant someone was coming back. I stayed hidden behind the trees. From where I stood, I had a view of the shed, the vent, the side trail that dipped into the woods. Hours passed. I didn't move. I didn't eat. I just held on to her sweater and counted seconds by the sound of leaves brushing against chain link. It wasn't until almost dusk that I saw him. Or her. It was hard to tell at first. A figure, hooded, moving low to the ground. Not in a rush, but not slow either. Like they'd done it before. They crept toward the shed, looked over their shoulder once, pulled the door open. I could see their hands. Small, too small for an adult. And then I realized, this wasn't the abductor. This was another child. My body moved before my brain could catch up. I stepped out of the trees and whispered, "Hey, wait." The figure froze, turned. I expected Emma. It wasn't her. It was a boy, maybe 8, maybe 9. Hair shaggy, clothes worn, skin smudged with dirt. He looked at me like I was something he didn't trust, but maybe recognized. I took a step closer. "I'm not here to hurt you," I said softly. "I'm looking for my daughter, Emma." He didn't speak. He just reached into the pocket of his hoodie and pulled something out. A small toy. A plastic butterfly clip. Purple and blue. I blinked. Emma had dozens of them, but that one, she wore it on her wrist like a bracelet. He held it out. I took it gently. Then he whispered, almost too soft to hear. They only come at night. My skin went cold. Who? He looked at the ground. The man with the voice and the one that doesn't talk. Before I could ask more, he turned and bolted back through the woods, too fast for me to follow. But he'd said enough. There wasn't just one person involved. There were more. And they weren't just hiding children. They were moving them. I called the police then. I told them about the boy, the clip, the vent, the shed. They said they'd send a team. But I already knew by the time they arrived, the boy would be gone. The vent would be closed again. The trail would be cold. Because whoever was behind this, they were always one step ahead. But now I had something they didn't expect, a witness and a plastic butterfly. And I'd follow both wherever they led. The clip was light in my hand, but it felt heavy in my chest. I didn't sleep that night. Couldn't. I sat at my kitchen table with the clip in front of me, Emma's sweater draped over my shoulders like a promise I couldn't let go of. Every hour, I stared at that plastic butterfly like it was a compass, like it might tilt or twitch and point me to where she was. But it didn't. It just stayed still, just like she had, waiting. The police had sent out a notice, a vague, possible sighting of a juvenile male near Hollow Creek Park. Nothing about the clip, nothing about the vent or the voices. I asked if they were checking the woods, the trails, the underpass off Route 7 where the trees knot together tight. They said yes, but they said it like they were reading it off a checklist, like it was protocol. And Emma wasn't protocol. She was my daughter. I went back to the park in the morning, but I didn't go to the playground. I went to the woods, behind the shed, down the slope, into the path where the boy had vanished. I followed his trail the best I could. Broken branches, soft indentations in the dirt, candy wrappers flattened by bare feet. Half a mile in, the trees thickened. The light dimmed, and I saw it. A scrap of red cloth caught in the bramble. I reached for it, and my heart stuttered when I pulled it free. It wasn't Emma's. It was a strip of flannel, faded, torn from a child's pajama top. There were numbers written in marker on the inside, just 4 digits, 1986. My stomach twisted, because Emma was born in 2017, and this pajama piece, it had been old when she was born. This didn't belong to her. It belonged to someone else, someone who'd come before. I looked around, suddenly aware of the silence pressing in on me. No birds, no wind, just the weight of stillness. Then I saw the trees ahead of me, 3 of them, curved inward like ribs around a hollow. In the middle, a structure, small, concrete, half sunken into the earth. A storm drain? A shelter? I moved closer. There was a door, metal, no handle on the outside, just a slit at the bottom and the faintest sound from behind it. I dropped to my knees, put my ear to the gap, and heard a breath, sharp, quick, then a whisper. He said, "Don't talk." I reeled back, fell into the dirt, my pulse hammering in my ears. I scrambled to my feet and pounded on the door. "Emma?" No reply, just silence. Then movement, the breath again, a whimper, and another voice, lower, a man's, closer than before. Too close. "Be quiet." I ran. I didn't want to, but I did. Because I didn't have a crowbar. I didn't have backup. And whoever was behind that door was still there. I called the police while I ran, told them exactly where to go, told them a child was inside, told them someone else was with her. I waited in the clearing until I heard the sirens in the distance, but I knew what they'd find. Nothing. Because by the time they got there, that door would be empty, that breath would be gone, and the numbers scratched into that cloth would be all that was left. A warning, a history, one I was now a part of. They didn't believe me. At least, not out loud. The officer who met me at the trailhead nodded like he understood, but I saw the doubt behind his eyes. Like maybe I'd stayed awake too long. Like grief had rewired the way I saw the world. They brought flashlights, a tracking dog, a crowbar. They found the structure I'd described. Half-buried, weathered, real. They pried the door open. But it was empty. No child, no man. Just stale air and damp walls, marked with shallow scratches, most too faint to read. Except for one, low on the far wall, just above the floor. Help. 4 letters, shaky, carved deep into the concrete. It wasn't mine, and it sure as hell wasn't imagined. They took a photo, logged it, said they'd investigate further. I asked them to check for fingerprints, footprints, anything. They said they would. But even as they packed up, I could feel it slipping away again. I walked home through the woods alone. I didn't have a choice. My car was still at the park, but I couldn't stomach the idea of watching them leave that door open behind them like it hadn't mattered, like a child hadn't been whispering on the other side just hours before. Halfway through the trail, I stopped, because I saw something in the dirt, a string, tangled around a branch of a fallen twig. I reached down and picked it up. It was tied in a loop, carefully, like a bracelet. And I knew it before I even turned it over, because Emma made those all the time. This one had beads, 4 letters, D-A-D-Y. Not even spelled right. She always forgot the second D, but she never forgot the Y. I sank to my knees, holding it, the ground spinning slightly beneath me. She had been here, not days ago, hours. I didn't sleep that night either. Instead, I printed out maps, every trail, every maintenance tunnel, every abandoned outbuilding in a 5-mile radius of Hollow Creek Park. I didn't care if it wasn't police protocol, because I was done letting someone else decide where the search began and ended. I started marking X's everywhere I'd found something. The shoes, the sweater, the butterfly clip, the storm door, the bracelet. Each one made a trail, not a straight line, but a spiral, pulling inward, towards something, towards someone. And that someone wasn't just hiding Emma. He was showing me the way. That's when the phone rang. Blocked number. I answered anyway. Silence on the other end. Then a voice. Mechanical. Filtered. You're close. Click. No number, no call record, no sound but my own breathing in the empty kitchen. But he was right. I was close, closer than I'd ever been. And whoever he was, he wanted me to keep going. He thought I'd follow. He was right. I didn't tell the police about the call. Not yet. I couldn't afford to watch them treat me like I was the problem, like I was the distraction instead of the one paying the closest attention. That voice, distorted, low, inhuman in its stillness, it hadn't been meant for them. It was meant for me, a test, a dare, and I intended to answer it. At sunrise, I returned to the park again. This time, I walked past the swing sets without looking, past the restrooms, the shed, the familiar signs. I kept going until I reached the back edge, where the maintenance trail curved into the thicker woods. I moved deeper than I had before, beyond the path, into the silence. That's when I heard it, a buzzing, low and constant like old electricity humming through forgotten wires. I followed the sound. And there, half covered in leaves and vines, was an old electrical junction box mounted to a concrete base, like a skeleton of something long abandoned. I wiped away the moss. The panel was unlocked. Inside, wires tangled like veins. Most were dead, but one wire pulsed faintly, red light blinking every 5 seconds. Next to it, taped carefully in place, was a Polaroid of Emma. She was sitting against a cinderblock wall, eyes open, alive. Her face was pale, smudged with dirt, but her expression? She wasn't crying. She looked calm, almost patient, like she knew I'd come. And on the bottom edge of the photo, written in shaky black marker, 2 more. 2 more what? Clues? Children? Locations? It didn't matter, because for the first time in 2 days, I saw her face again. And now, it wasn't hope that filled me. It was focus. I took the photo to the police, demanded they scan it, track its paper batch, dust it for prints. They took it, bagged it, promised they'd analyze everything. But they didn't see what I saw. In the far corner of the photo, behind Emma's shoulder, was a symbol. Graffiti maybe, faded, black spray paint. A circle split in half, vertical, jagged down the middle. I'd seen that before. Back in town, I went to the library. I dug through old public records, archived blueprints, and there it was. An old water filtration station, decommissioned in 1998, located exactly 1.3 miles northeast of where I'd found the Polaroid. On the wall of its entrance, photographed in a decades-old maintenance report, was the same circle, split, jagged. I printed the map, traced the path. It cut through backwoods, through state land. No cameras, no patrols. Exactly where someone would hide if they needed time. And whoever took Emma, they weren't moving fast. They were building something, staging something. And I was no longer a father begging for help. I was a father hunting, because I knew where to go next. And nothing, not the law, not the dark, not even my own fear, was going to stop me from getting there. I reached the filtration plant just before dusk. The trail wasn't marked, not anymore, but I'd memorized the satellite view, counted steps between the last power pole and the first break in the tree line. I moved fast, kept low, didn't tell anyone where I was going. I couldn't, not now. This part, it wasn't for the police. It was for Emma. The building came into view like a ghost. Concrete, gray, broken windows like missing eyes, ivy crawling across its skin like it had been slowly swallowed by time. A rusted sign still hung over the entry door. Larch County Water Station, out of service. But there were footprints in the mud outside. Small ones. Too small for boots. Just the length of a child's sneaker. The front door was padlocked. I circled the building, found a boarded window with a corner loose, pried it open, crawled inside. The air hit me like a closed tomb. Musty, stale, thick with metal and mildew. My flashlight cut a narrow cone through the dark. Pipes ran along the ceiling. Old valves marked with chalk. Water stains on the walls like veins left behind. But what stopped me was the sound. A faint tapping, steady, not machine-made, like fingers, knocking. I followed it step by step through the darkness, past rusted tanks and shattered tiles, toward a locked metal door near the back. It looked newer than the rest of the building, reinforced, scratched. I pressed my ear to it, heard breathing. Then, "Daddy?" My knees buckled. I bit back a sob and pressed both hands to the door. "Emma, it's me. I'm here." I heard her gasp. Then footsteps. Then her voice again, closer now, against the other side. "He's not here right now." Then quieter. "But he comes back soon." I looked for a handle, a latch, anything. But it was sealed. Bolted from the outside. Yes, but with an electronic pad. No keyhole. Just a scanner. A white plastic plate, blinking red. Like it was waiting. Waiting for something to unlock it. A card? A fob? A hand? Then I remembered the Polaroid. I pulled it from my pocket, turned it over. Nothing. Except, under the corner of the photo, there was tape. Something thin and hard pressed between the picture and its backing. I peeled it loose. A key card. Black. Plain. No writing. No logo. But the right shape. I held it up to the scanner. It blinked red. Then yellow. Then green. A click echoed through the hall. The bolt slid free, and the door opened. She was standing there, hair messy, face streaked with tears and dirt, but alive. Emma, my daughter. We didn't speak. She ran to me. I caught her and held her so tight I could feel her heartbeat against mine. I wanted to collapse, to scream, to cry, to run. But I didn't, because behind her, in the shadows, was another child, a boy, thin, older, eyes wide, holding the same rabbit patch backpack I'd seen in the surveillance tape. And he whispered, "There's more." My chest tightened. I looked past him and saw the hallway. 3 more doors, all bolted, all quiet, all waiting. And in that moment, I understood. This wasn't the end. This was just the start. I stepped into the room and closed the door behind me. Not to trap us, but to keep him out, whoever he was. The man who came and went. The one Emma and the boy had spoken about only in fragments and whispers. The room was small, concrete from top to bottom, with thin sleeping mats on the floor and an overturned crate in the corner where food wrappers and plastic juice bottles sat in a pile. No windows. One light in the ceiling, flickering slightly, like it knew it wasn't supposed to be on anymore. Emma clung to my side. The boy stood a few feet away, thin arms crossed like he wasn't sure whether to stay or run. "What's your name?" I asked gently. "Micah," he whispered. His voice barely reached me. "How long have you been here?" He looked down. "A long time." I knew what that meant, or rather, what it didn't mean. Not a week, not even a month. A year, maybe more. There was a dust line where the floor met the door. Old stickers on the wall. Faded stars, a cartoon tiger. Micah hadn't just been held here, he had lived here. Survived. "Did he ever hurt you?" Micah didn't answer, just shook his head slowly. But I saw the pause in his breath, the way his lip tightened. That wasn't a no. That was a memory. One too heavy for words. I turned back to the hallway. 3 more doors. One of them slightly ajar, as if someone had left in a hurry. I knelt next to Emma. "Do you know if there are more kids here?" She nodded, slowly, her eyes never leaving the hallway. "I heard them, sometimes at night, but then they'd stop talking." Micah walked to the far door, the one closest to the exit. He reached out and touched it lightly, as if testing its temperature. "This one opens, sometimes." He looked at me. "But not when he's here." My pulse was steady, too steady, like my body had gone into some survival mode I didn't recognize. I stood up, checked the keycard again. Still in my hand, still functional. I slid it across the next scanner. Nothing. No beep, no light. Dead. The second door, same result. But the third door, that one blinked. Faintly. I tried the keycard. A slow green flash. A click. I hesitated. Emma gripped my leg tighter. "Stay behind me," I told them both. I pulled the door open. Inside was another room, no larger than a walk-in closet, and in the center, sitting cross-legged on the floor, was a girl. Eyes open, blank stare, hair tangled. She didn't look up when the door opened, didn't speak, didn't react. "Hey," I said softly, "it's okay, you're safe now." She blinked once, then again, then, "He's going to be mad." I stepped inside, knelt slowly, took her hand. It was cold. "What's your name?" She looked past me. "Jenny." I swallowed. Jenny. I remembered that name. On a flyer, a missing poster from 2 years ago, from 3 towns over. I looked at her again. She hadn't just been hidden. She'd been forgotten. I called the police then, again. Told them to come, urgently. I gave them coordinates, described the building, told them how many kids I had with me, told them I was staying, because I wasn't going to be the guy who left the door open for him to walk back through. Micah handed me a rusted metal rod from beneath one of the mats. I didn't ask why it was there. I just held it tight and waited by the door, because now I had Emma, I had Micah, I had Jenny, and whoever had done this, if he came back, he was going to find out what a father could become. The minutes crawled. The kids stayed close. I kept them behind me, Emma to my left, Micah to my right, Jenny sitting just beyond the doorframe, still unmoving, her eyes staring at something only she could see. I gripped the metal rod so hard my palms started to sweat. My breath was low, shallow. My ears strained to hear something, anything beyond these walls. I wasn't sure what I'd do if he came through that door, but I knew I wouldn't run. Not again. I checked my phone. No signal. Figures. The concrete, the depth of the facility, it was a bunker. Someone had built it to last, but not for safety, for control, to keep people in. I looked back at Micah. How long did he stay away before? Sometimes a day, sometimes just an hour. What does he drive? A white van, Micah whispered. No windows in the back. It smells like metal. I nodded. Does he always come through the front? Micah shook his head. There's another way. I think. I've never seen it, but sometimes he just appears. I moved to the hallway again, listened. Still nothing. Then a thud, faint, from above. Not from the woods, not from the front, from inside the building. I looked up and saw a square in the ceiling, a hatch, covered in grime, barely noticeable unless you were already staring. He had a crawl space, a ceiling entry. He could be watching, could be anywhere. I stepped back fast, pulled the kids closer. That's when I heard the footsteps, soft, measured, inside. My grip on the rod tightened. I turned off the flashlight and held my breath. Another step, just around the bend in the hallway, slow, confident. Then, his voice, low, calm, too calm. You shouldn't be here. I didn't answer. Emma buried her face into my leg. You should have let her go, he said. Another step. She was fine. She didn't cry, not like the others. I stepped into the hall just enough to see him. A man, average build, late 40s, wearing coveralls, gloves, a mask over his face, not medical, homemade, sewn leather, 2 black ovals where eyes should be. He didn't flinch when he saw me. You're her father. I didn't respond. I raised the metal bar. He tilted his head. Do you think you're the first? That's when he charged. No scream, no sound, just sudden motion. He was fast. But rage is faster. I swung. The bar cracked against his shoulder, but he didn't fall. He shoved me into the wall hard. I hit the concrete with my back, vision ringing. Then I heard Emma scream. That did it. I lunged, grabbed the bar again, hit him across the leg. He staggered. I hit him again, harder. He collapsed. I didn't stop there. I hit him once more, and once more after that. Then the door burst open. Flashlights, voices, guns drawn. Drop the weapon. I raised my hands and stepped back. The man on the floor groaned. Blood seeped through his mask. 2 officers cuffed him. 1 checked me for injuries. Another pulled Emma into a blanket. I was shaking, but not from fear, from the weight leaving my body. From the moment I realized she was safe. She was really safe. They let us outside. I blinked at the sun like it didn't belong in this world. And then I held Emma against me again, tighter than before, because this time I wasn't letting go. The sky never looked so wide. We stepped out of the bunker and into a world that had kept moving without us. The birds were still calling in the trees. Wind still moved through the branches. The sun hadn't noticed that everything had changed below it. But I had. Emma had. Micah didn't say much. He clutched the blanket tight around his shoulders, eyes darting at every officer who passed him. Jenny, still silent, walked like she wasn't fully inside her body yet. She held my hand when I offered it, and I didn't let go. Neither did Emma. The officers swarmed the area. Evidence bags, drones overhead. Someone asked for my statement, but I couldn't form the words. Not yet. Not with Emma tucked against me and the taste of that concrete room still in my lungs. They put the man, him, in a separate vehicle. Even cuffed, even masked, he didn't flinch. He didn't scream. He didn't resist. He just stared. Right at me. Like he knew something. Like this wasn't the end. But I stared back. Not with fear, with fury. Because he didn't break us, and he never would. Hours passed. They brought counselors, for the children, for me. They asked if I needed medical. I said no. They asked if I wanted to be alone. I said no. I just wanted to be with Emma, to see her, to feel her weight against me, and know this was real, that this wasn't a dream my mind was inventing to protect itself from the unthinkable. Later that night, in the hospital, Emma finally spoke again. She was lying in bed, wrapped in warm sheets, IV taped to her arm. Her eyes were half closed when she whispered, "Did I do good?" I leaned in. What? Leaving the sweater, and the bracelet, and the wall. I smiled, though it cracked something deep inside me. "You saved yourself, Em." She blinked slowly. "No, I saved us." That's when I broke. Not loudly, just a quiet kind of crying. The kind where your body shakes, but your voice doesn't come out. The kind that only happens when someone you love more than yourself proves stronger than you ever thought possible. I kissed her forehead, held her hand, watched her finally fall asleep. In the hallway, 2 detectives waited. They told me there were files in the bunker, records, not just Emma, not just Micah or Jenny, but others. Names that had never made it to the public, cases closed as runaways, files sealed, patterns missed or ignored, because someone didn't want to see. I asked about the man. They said he wasn't talking. No ID, no fingerprints on file, no digital trail. Just a ghost with a key card and a mask. But they found more vents, more Polaroids, and more symbols painted on concrete walls in facilities just like this one. Facilities scattered across 3 counties, which meant one thing. He wasn't working alone, and Emma wasn't the last child they tried to take. But she was the one who left the trail. She was the one who fought her way out without ever raising a hand. And I would spend the rest of my life making sure they never touched another child again. Not while I was still breathing. Not while I still remembered what her voice sounded like through a stall door, calling me back to life. The house didn't feel the same. We returned 2 days later. Me, Emma, and silence. I unlocked the front door and stepped into a place that had held her absence like a secret. The cereal bowl was still on the counter, the jacket still draped over the chair, the shoes she didn't wear that day still sitting by the door. But she wasn't gone anymore. And I wasn't the same man who had walked out of this house 3 days ago. She stayed close, not out of fear, but something quieter, like she was still relearning what space meant. Every time I left the room, even just for a second, I heard her call softly, "Daddy?" And every time I answered, right away, "I'm here," because now I understood what that meant. Sometimes "I'm here" is the only thing you need to hear. The doctors say she'll be okay, that she's strong, but healing takes time. And no one talks enough about what it means to wait for that healing, to sit beside a child who wakes from sleep with her fists clenched, who draws pictures of places with no doors and people with faces left blank. She talks sometimes, but mostly she's quiet, until the music comes on. Then she hums. And when she hums, I sit down on the floor beside her and hum too. Because it's not the words that matter now. It's the presence, the rhythm, the echo of a life not yet broken. The police still call. There are more names, more places to search, more vents, more Polaroids. Other families who now know what I know, what it means to find something you thought you lost forever. They call her evidence, lead witness, case changer. But to me, she's just Emma, my girl, the one who left breadcrumbs through a forest no one else was brave enough to walk. And every night before she goes to bed, she looks at me and asks, "Will you be here tomorrow?" And I say, "I will, every day, every minute, because she saved me, and now I'll never stop saving her right back." There are some things you never get back. Time, trust, the version of yourself that believed monsters wore claws instead of key cards and masks. But what I've learned, what Emma taught me, is that even when the worst has happened, even when the world darkens and the doors close and the voices stop answering, you keep walking. One step, then another, even if your hands are shaking, even if your heart is breaking. Because sometimes, on the other side of the silence, there's a whisper waiting, a child's voice, a name scratched into tile, a pair of shoes facing the wall, not as surrender, but as a message. I'm still here. I don't know how many others there were. I don't know how long the bunker existed or how many children it held before someone finally noticed. But I know one thing with absolute certainty. Emma was the spark that lit the dark. She never gave up. Not when she was alone. Not when she was afraid. Not even when the man with the mask told her no one would come. She believed. And that belief, threadbare as it was, became the rope we both held onto. She pulled me back to her, one clue at a time. Now the doors in this house stay open, lights stay on a little longer, and I sit with her night after night until her breathing evens out and the fear curls itself into sleep. She is not broken. She is brave. And every time she says, "Good night, Daddy," I say it back like a promise. Because there is no greater truth I've found than this. When they leave you a trail, follow it, no matter how dark. Because the light, it's always still burning on the other side.